He checked his phone for what felt like the 10th time in 5 minutes. The message was still there. "I'm so sorry. Something came up. I have to cancel. Maybe another time." Ethan let out a quiet sigh and slipped his phone into his pocket. The small Italian restaurant had looked like the perfect place for a first date, but now he sat alone by the window with 2 untouched menus and an awkward smile every time the waiter walked past. He almost stood up to leave when his eyes drifted across the street. A young woman sat on a weathered wooden bench, holding a little boy no older than 4. She looked exhausted. Her blonde hair was tied into a messy ponytail, and her faded blue sweater was far too thin for the chilly evening. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks as she searched through a nearly empty purse. The little boy tugged gently on her sleeve. "Mommy. I'm hungry." She forced a smile that broke Ethan's heart. "I know, sweetheart. Just give Mommy one more minute." If you believe one small act of kindness can change someone's entire life, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Sometimes the smallest moments become the biggest miracles. Ethan watched as the mother counted a handful of coins. Her shoulders slumped when she realized it wasn't enough. She quietly wiped away another tear, hoping her son wouldn't notice. The boy pointed toward a bakery window where fresh bread and pastries were displayed. "Can we have one?" She swallowed hard before whispering, "Not today." Without thinking twice, Ethan stood, apologized to the confused waiter, paid for the untouched table, and crossed the street. He stopped a respectful distance away. "Excuse me. I don't mean to interrupt." The woman immediately looked embarrassed and tried to hide her tears. "I'm sorry if we're bothering anyone." "You're not bothering anyone," Ethan replied gently. "I had dinner plans that suddenly got cancelled, and now I have enough food for 3. I'd hate to see it go to waste." She hesitated. "I can't accept charity." "It's not charity," Ethan smiled. "It's saving me from eating 3 plates of pasta by myself." For the first time that evening, the little boy giggled. His mother looked at her son, then back at Ethan. Finally, she nodded. "Thank you." Inside the restaurant, the little boy's eyes grew wide as warm garlic bread arrived. He looked toward his mother before touching anything. "Is it really okay?" She smiled through fresh tears. "Yes, sweetheart." He took one bite and grinned so brightly that several nearby diners smiled without even knowing why. The woman introduced herself as Emily. Between quiet conversations, Ethan learned that her husband had passed away 18 months earlier after a construction accident. Medical bills had consumed their savings, and despite working 2 part-time jobs, she had recently lost one when the company closed unexpectedly. Today had been especially difficult. Their electricity bill was overdue, rent was due in 3 days, and she had spent her last few dollars on bus fare to a job interview that ended with another rejection. "I just wanted to buy him one sandwich," she admitted softly. "I thought I had enough." Ethan listened without interrupting. He noticed Emily never complained about herself. Every sentence centered on her son, his school, his dreams, his favorite dinosaurs. When dessert arrived, Ethan quietly excused himself. Instead of leaving, he walked to the restaurant manager, whom he happened to know through his architecture firm. After a brief conversation, the manager smiled warmly. Returning to the table, Ethan acted as though nothing had happened. As they prepared to leave, the manager approached Emily. "Ma'am," he said kindly, "we've been looking for someone reliable to help with our morning bakery counter. Flexible hours, free meals during every shift, and the position starts tomorrow if you're interested." Emily stared in disbelief. "You're serious?" "Very." If this story touched your heart, leave a comment telling us about a time when an unexpected act of kindness changed your life. And remember, the greatest blessings often arrive disguised as interrupted plans. The next morning, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about Emily and her son. He wondered whether she had accepted the bakery job or if pride had convinced her to walk away. Before heading to his office, he decided to stop by the restaurant. The smell of fresh bread filled the air as he stepped inside. Behind the counter, wearing a clean apron that was slightly too large, stood Emily. She looked tired, but this time there was something different in her eyes. Hope. When she noticed Ethan, her face lit up with a genuine smile. "You came." "I was nearby," he said with a laugh. "I wanted to make sure my recommendation didn't get me into trouble." The restaurant manager overheard and smiled. "She's already saved us twice this morning. Half the customers came back for extra pastries because of her." Emily blushed. "I just smiled and remembered everyone's names." "That's more valuable than you think," the manager replied. Just then, a familiar little voice echoed through the café. "Mr. Ethan." The little boy ran across the room and hugged him without hesitation. "I told Mommy you'd come back." Ethan laughed as he picked him up. "And how are you today, buddy?" "I'm full," the boy announced proudly. Emily looked down, trying to hide the tears forming in her eyes again. You have no idea how wonderful it feels to hear him say that. For the first time in weeks, she had packed her son's lunchbox with fresh fruit, a sandwich, and a homemade cookie given to her by one of the bakers. It wasn't much. But to them, it felt like abundance. Over the following weeks, Ethan found himself stopping by the bakery almost every morning. Sometimes he bought coffee. Sometimes he didn't buy anything at all. He simply enjoyed talking with Emily before work. They learned more about each other with every conversation. Ethan admitted he had spent years chasing promotions and expensive possessions, believing success alone would make him happy. Emily confessed that after losing her husband, she had forgotten what it felt like to laugh. Yet somehow, those ordinary mornings slowly healed pieces of both their hearts. One rainy afternoon, Ethan arrived carrying a small backpack. "I think someone left this for a dinosaur expert." The little boy opened it carefully. Inside were dinosaur books, coloring pages, and a small toy T-Rex. His eyes sparkled with excitement. "For me?" "They belong to my nephew," Ethan explained. "He's grown up now. I thought they deserved another adventure." The child hugged the backpack tightly. "This is the best day ever." Emily looked at Ethan. "You keep showing up exactly when we need you." He smiled softly. "I think you've done the same for me." A month later, the bakery held its annual neighborhood celebration. Families gathered outside with music, games, and homemade desserts. Emily had been promoted to full-time supervisor after proving herself dependable and hardworking. The manager praised her in front of everyone. "Some people come here looking for a paycheck. Emily came here looking for a second chance, and reminded all of us what perseverance looks like." The crowd applauded. Emily glanced toward Ethan. Their eyes met, and neither of them needed words. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the rooftops, Ethan and Emily sat on the same park bench where they had first met. The little boy chased Bubbles nearby, laughing louder than either of them had ever heard. Emily smiled. "A month ago, I thought my world was ending. And now? Now I believe tomorrow can be better than today." Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He opened the old message from the woman who had cancelled their blind date. Without hesitation, he deleted it forever. That cancelled evening no longer felt like a disappointment. It had become the turning point of his life. Sometimes the door that closes isn't a loss, it quietly guides you toward the people you were always meant to find. Before the story ends, tell us in the comments, have you ever experienced a moment when a setback turned into your greatest blessing? And if this story warmed your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more unforgettable stories of hope, kindness, and second chances. 6 months passed, and the little Italian restaurant still kept the same table by the window. Whenever Ethan walked past it, he smiled. It no longer reminded him of being stood up. It reminded him that one unexpected decision had rewritten 3 lives. Emily had become one of the restaurant's most trusted employees. Her warmth attracted regular customers, and the bakery's business had grown so much that the owner expanded the morning staff. She was finally able to move out of the tiny apartment that constantly leaked whenever it rained. Her son, Noah, had started kindergarten with a new backpack, clean clothes, and a confidence Ethan had never seen before. One afternoon, Ethan arrived carrying a small envelope. "I have something for you," he said. Emily looked nervous. "If it's money, I can't take it." "It isn't." She opened the envelope. Inside was a scholarship application for a culinary school that offered evening classes. "I remembered you telling me that baking had always been your dream." Emily stared at the papers in silence. "I gave up on that dream years ago." "You postponed it," Ethan corrected gently. "You didn't lose it." Her eyes filled with tears. "No one has believed in me like this since my husband." "You've already done the hard part," Ethan said. "You survived. Now it's time to build the life you deserve." Encouraged by Ethan and the restaurant owner, Emily applied. A few weeks later, an email arrived. She had been accepted with a partial scholarship. The rest of the tuition would be covered by a local community fund after the restaurant owner shared her story. Emily cried so hard that she could barely read the letter aloud. That evening, she found Ethan sitting on the same park bench where everything had begun. Without saying a word, she handed him the acceptance letter. He read it, smiled, and stood. "I'm proud of you." "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "You reminded me that I still had something to be proud of." Just then, Noah ran toward them carrying a drawing from school. It showed 3 people holding hands beneath a bright yellow sun. One was a woman with long blonde hair. One was a little boy. The third was a tall man with brown hair. At the top, written in uneven crayons, were the words, "My family." Emily's eyes widened. "Noah." The little boy looked confused. "What?" "Families are people who love each other." Neither adult could speak. Children often see the truth long before grown-ups are brave enough to admit it. Months later, on the anniversary of the day Ethan's blind date had been cancelled, he invited Emily and Noah back to the same Italian restaurant. They sat at the very table that had once felt so lonely. This time, there were no empty chairs. After dinner, Ethan reached into his jacket pocket. Emily smiled nervously. "What are you doing?" He placed a small velvet box on the table. "I came here a year ago expecting to meet someone I barely knew." He looked at Noah, who was grinning from ear to ear. "Instead, I met the 2 people who changed my life forever." He opened the box. Inside was a simple, elegant ring. "Emily, will you let me spend the rest of my life making sure neither you nor Noah ever have to face life's hardest days alone?" Tears streamed down Emily's face before she could answer. "Yes." Noah clapped so loudly that the entire restaurant turned to look. "Does this mean I get to call you Dad?" Ethan knelt beside him, his own eyes wet. "Only if that's what you want." The little boy threw his arms around Ethan's neck. "I've wanted to for a long time." The restaurant erupted into applause. Even the waiter who had served Ethan on the night of the cancelled date recognized him and smiled, remembering the lonely man who had quietly paid for 2 untouched dinners. He never could have imagined that the greatest love story in the room would begin not with a perfect date, but with a hungry child, a mother's silent tears, and one stranger who chose compassion over convenience. Sometimes the happiest endings don't arrive as planned. They begin the moment someone decides to care. The end.